r/nosleep. Posted by u/mr_mojo_rising95. Check out author's subreddit r/mojo tales. Why we take the heads off the mannequins at night. My name is Sarah and I rent out a store in a local mall selling women's clothing. I have owned this store for 5 years. I feel very fortunate that I can run a successful business. There is one thing though that keeps me up at night, that seeps in my nightmares till I wake in a cold sweat. Every night after closing, myself and the rest of the staff do our daily routine of removing the heads off the mannequins. If we do not remove their heads, disturbing things can happen. When I bought the store, the previous owner left a room full of mannequins. Being I owned a clothing store, I cleaned them up a bit and propped them up throughout the store to display my clothes. There are about 20 mannequins throughout the store that must be accounted for. No one may leave for the night without the heads counted and locked in their respected lockers. We have lost several staff members over the years by not following protocol with the mannequins. Myself and the rest of the team respect the rules and follow them closely, knowing the grave dangers that present themselves if broken. Last October, our newest staff member did not follow the store protocols. Justin was a 22-year-old, a college dropout, looking for any work he could get his hands on to pay off his bills. Justin was cocky, he didn't connect well with customers. He would take long cigarette breaks, do a lazy job of folding the clothes and most importantly, he didn't take the rules seriously. Justin watched us each night his first 2 weeks on the job. How each person would behead their assigned mannequin. The black, shiny plastic mannequins were posed in various ways to display our hottest items. As the store would wind down for the night, I'd swear you'd catch movement in the corner of your eyes, like one of them were moving. While normal stores leave their mannequins as is, it is crucial we behead them each night. So Justin watched from the sideline those first couple weeks as we removed the mannequins' heads and locked them in their lockers. Justin appeared bored, disinterested with the entire protocol, scrolling away on his phone while the rest of the team secured the store. When the 2 weeks came up, Justin was assigned his very own 6 mannequins that he needed to address each night he worked. Well, the problems started almost immediately. I am a key holder, so I open the store most of the days. I have put many long hours after closing each night counting the mannequins, confirming that they are locked up. I have now given that responsibility up to the rest of the trusted staff, that is excluding Justin. I headed to the store about at 8 a.m. when I saw her standing beyond the glass. A tall, naked, womanly mannequin with exaggerated curves was standing in the middle of the main aisle. I felt my stomach drop inside me as she stood posed, her arm waving casually and the other planted on her hip. Her back arched like she was a ballerina. I shakily unlocked the store, looking around towards the other mannequins who were neatly in place on their elevated stands, all without heads. Except the one standing before me. Posed like a dancer, her bald glossy head facing me. Despite being devoid of facial expressions, I could sense some emotions from them, an anger almost. I cautiously approached the mannequin, feeling the air grow quiet around me. Like a predator was stalking me from a distance. The pressure rose in my head as I reached towards her own bald head. My hands wrapped around her cold head as I twisted. I twisted her head slightly, squeaking as I pulled it off with a pop. The head came off and the mannequin fell over. Her body crashing, echoing through the empty store as it sent a shiver up my spine. I raced towards my desk and texted the group chat, asking who closed last night. Everyone answered except Justin. Amanda and Eric confirmed they closed with Justin. All but one confirmed their mannequins were locked up. Again, Justin remained quiet. I called a staff meeting that afternoon, drilling the importance of locking up the mannequins. Justin hung in the back, yawning as I spoke. Those upcoming weeks, that airy feeling hung in the store, almost like they were watching us. They seemed to change their positions, even without anyone moving them. I stayed back each night, triple checking that they were all locked up. Well, one night, when I wasn't able to stay back and Justin, Amanda, and Eric were tasked with closing, that feeling of dread was washing over me on my drive home. I cursed myself that evening, screaming in my head for them not to forget. For Justin to not be such a fuck up and do what he was told. At about 2 a.m., an alert buzzed on my phone. The security system for the store was going off. My phone flashed security breach. Front door open. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes as the alert continued. I opened my security camera app to the store, flicking through each camera until I got to the one facing the door. She was standing there again. Like a posing ballerina. Her naked black plastic skin. That blank face aimed towards the camera. A body lay before her, but it was no mannequin. Clothed, fuller. It was a male, face first on the floor. I frantically texted into the group chat but no one responded. I grabbed keys and raced towards the mall. A mall in the middle of the night is an eerie place to find yourself. Not a light to be seen. The empty stores lined with their pull-down chain fences. I carefully walked down the main floor towards my store, my feet echoing on the tile. I could hear the faint alarm going off as I drew closer. That dry lump in my throat was forming. As I approached the store, seeing the main doors wide open, I knew something wasn't right. There she was standing in the main aisle again. Posed in such an eccentric manner, her blank face looking straight at me. A body lay before her in one of the store uniform. I could barely see in the dark, my phone flashlight barely lighting up enough space to see. I shone the light on the body, seeing the ruffled blonde hair of Justin. A pool of blood was around his head, his arm tied behind his back. The mannequin stood over him, like a fierce hunter claiming his kill. I switched the security alarm off on my phone. Standing in the darkness with the mannequin, her army of headless soldiers frozen around her. There was nothing I could do at this point. Justin would have to stay there till morning. If I were to step one foot in the store with her head securely on, I would end up just like Justin. I stayed out front of the store the remainder of the night, watching her. The rest of the mannequins seemed to move but I would only catch a split-second glimpse before they were frozen again. As the sun rose, and the pool of blood around Justin's lifeless body grew larger, I called the authorities. I called the rest of the staff in. We watched as they wheeled Justin's beaten, bloody and bound body out of the store. Amanda and Eric hung back nervously, swearing they saw Justin leave when they did. It was a grim reminder for all of us. Never to leave the store without removing their heads. The next story of this video was posted by u/Mr._Mojo_Rising95. Do not speak with the mysterious hikers on Rye Mountain Park. When the weather permits, myself and my dog Roxy take a hike on one of the various trails that inhabit the Rye Mountain Park. The peak of the mountain offers phenomenal views of the Hudson River and surrounding woods. With autumn in full swing, the vibrant oranges, yellows, and reds leave a breathtaking view. Roxy has become quite the hiker at this point in her young life. She keeps ahead of me, carefully moving with each step. Her backpack strapped on with her own gear. Roxy and I usually spend the weekend camping out on Rye Mountain if we have the opportunity. Getting away from people, especially during the quarantine, has given me a great excuse to spend my free time camping. Certain areas of the large park can get quite crowded, especially ones that are closer to the various swimming lakes. As the colder weather has swept in, most of the casual campers have closed it in for the season. This time happens to be my favorite to camp. Not too hot and the nights are just cold enough to keep bundled up in the tent. Roxy and I have spent many nights huddled together in our tent, keeping each other warm, cooking food over an open flame and watching the sea of stars above us. It really is quite peaceful out here. That is until the hikers finds you. I remember the first group I saw. Roxy and I had headed off trail, about a mile or so to a more secluded spot near a stream. A flat open area that was perfect to set our tent up. Roxy played by the water, nipping at the tiny rapids while I set up camp. We were planning on staying till Sunday, then hiking out. I had a few hot dogs, beans and veggies I was going to cook up for the two of us that night. As the sun settled, disappearing behind the horizon, the quietness set in. Not a soul to be seen where we were. Off the beaten path, isolated, just the way we liked it. I had a carry pistol just in case a black bear or mountain lion decided to investigate our remote camp. Many a nights Roxy would let out a guttural growl from within the tent. Outside into the darkness of something circling our camp. In these parts, animals are the least of your concerns, it's the hikers that legend says to be weary of. Dusk came without an incident. I grilled hot dogs, cutting up bits for Roxy to enjoy. I boiled veggie and sipped on an ISOPA. It was that right time at night where the sky is just dark enough that the stars start to reveal themselves. Roxy and I marveled as they twinkled above us. We headed in the tent for the rest of the night. I poured water over the fire, put away any leftover food and zipped ourselves in for the night. Sleep came easy in the tent. I often slept better out in the woods than in my own bed. As did Roxy, it seemed. It must have been about 3 a.m. or so when I first heard it. A large rustling out in the woods woke me from my sleep. I tossed in my blankets as the sounds rustled on. I listened closely, hearing Roxy snore deeply. The rustling drew closer, sounding more like footsteps. Was someone out there, I thought? Maybe a park ranger telling me I'm not allowed to camp this far out. I popped my head out from the tent, my eyes adjusting to the darkness, trying to follow the sound. The rustling came from the side, where we originally hiked in from. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, the moonlight illuminating them before me. "Hello?" I groggily asked. 3 figures, 2 men and 1 woman were standing still as statues with no hiking gear on. "Hello there," one of them asked as they emerged from the darkness. Can I help you?" I replied, fumbling for my utility knife. "Can we use your fire?" one of the men asked in a monotone voice. Yeah, can you give me a minute?" Roxy was still sound asleep. I threw on my coat and headed out to meet the strangers. The 3 of them had sat down around the fire pit. I struggled to light it in the cold but managed to get a spark. "Where are you guys headed to?" I asked. One of the men turned towards me, his face blank and cold. "We're out for a hike, just like you." "But you guys don't have any gear? It's dangerous to walk around without a light out here?" The 3 individuals all turned to face me. "We don't need lights where we're going," the woman replied. A chill was creeping up my spine, unsure if it was the temperature or the creepy people that emerged from the woods to find my remote camp. I couldn't put my finger on how they found me all the way out here. I was like a needle in a haystack with the spot I picked. And why didn't they have any gear with them? It looked like they just rolled out of bed and decided to walk 7 miles into the woods in the dark. We sat, the 4 of us, by the fire for about 20 minutes. All in silence. The fire crackled before us, they seemed to be put in a trance by it. When the awkwardness of the whole situation came to a boiling point, I finally stood up and asked them to leave. "I think I'm going to head back to bed. I would appreciate it if you and your friends leave my campsite." The 3 individuals all rose in unison, their shadows dancing around the flames. I poured the rest of my water bottle on the fire, extinguishing it. Their bodies engulfed by the surrounding darkness. The pressure seemed to rise as the 4 of us stood in the darkness, nervously clutching my utility knife, praying I wouldn't have to use it. The figures turned like soldiers towards the woods and headed in a seemingly random direction. "Thank you," they all replied. I watched as their dark shapes disappeared into the woods. I didn't get much sleep that night, if any. When morning finally came, I packed up camp and Roxy and I headed home. But that was when I didn't know the dangers of the mysterious hikers. Before I knew never to speak with them if I encounter them out on a camping trip. After speaking with people around town and finding old news articles at the library about them, the sinister feelings started to wash over me. I was not the only person to meet a mysterious group of hikers in the woods. I came to find I was one of the only ones to survive an encounter with them. Reports began popping up in my research of brutalized campsites. Campers strewn to bits, their belongings ravaged. Locals chopped it up to hungry animals deep in the woods, but autopsy reports showed something different. Marks from strangulation, slices from glass and knives along their bodies. The worst being human bite marks on the corpses. Something is out there in those woods. Not a lot of people like talking about them. Word of mouth is if you see any of these mysterious hikers, that you should just hunker down in your camp and wait for them to leave. My mind flashes back to the night I first encountered the group. I felt like I was on borrowed time after I spoke with them. Hiking, after all the research I did, lost its glamour. Feeling more like I was trespassing on land that I wasn't supposed to be on. That I was unwelcomed and unsafe in the parks that I had spent so many nights before. So, I've taken my hiking to other areas, where no one has heard of mysterious night hikers. But something always draws me back to Rye Mountain. Roxy and I will do day trips there if I can get past the initial uneasy feeling in my stomach. Maybe one of these days I'll spend a night again, see if my old friends come to pay a visit.